The village of Kenyan sat quietly between two green hills, its red earth cracked by the sun and its nights softened by the chirping of crickets. Life there moved slowly. Cattle bells in the morning, women fetching water with yellow jerrycans, men returning from the fields with hose slung over their shoulders. Yet beneath that ordinary rhythm, there was a story whispered from homestead to homestead, around fires at night, and at the riverbanks when women bent to wash their clothes. It was the story of Omondi. Omondi was not just another young man of the village. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a gait that made even other men step aside when he passed. His eyes were sharp, his voice carried authority, and his presence commanded silence. But it was not his strength or his temper that made people whisper. It was something else, something that mothers warned their daughters about with hushed voices and knowing looks. They said every girl was afraid of his manhood. No one explained it directly, but the meaning was clear. He had grown into a man whose masculinity was larger than life, intimidating, consuming, almost dangerous. The girls he had courted, or rather tried to, would return shaken, whispering of his intensity. Some said he was too rough, others said he carried a darkness in his heart, a hunger that could never be satisfied. Whatever the reason, he had never managed to keep a woman. One after another, they fled, leaving him alone in his father's vast compound, feared and avoided. And so Omondi built a wall around himself. He threw himself into cattle rearing, into tilling the land, into lifting logs and carrying stones as though work could fill the emptiness inside him. Yet at night, when the moon hung over the hills, he would sit outside his hut, restless, staring into the shadows. He longed for someone who would not fear him, someone who would stand firm before his storms. That someone arrived one dry season, when the river ran low and the earth cracked even deeper. Her name was Akinyi, and she came from the neighboring village after her father died, leaving her mother widowed and poor. They moved to Kenyan to stay with distant relatives, setting up a small hut at the edge of the fields. From the beginning, she was different. While other girls laughed shyly behind their hands when men passed, Akinyi looked them straight in the eye. While they wore colourful lassos and kept their voices soft, she tied her head with a plain scarf and spoke boldly, unafraid of offending anyone. She was not rude, but she carried herself with a dignity that could not be ignored. Omondi noticed her first at the market. She was selling roasted maize by the roadside, her sleeves rolled up, sweat glistening on her forehead, her laughter ringing freely. He stopped to buy, and when their eyes met, something shifted. "Maize 5 shillings, she said, holding one out. He took it, his large hand brushing hers. She did not flinch. "People say much about you," she said casually, as though speaking about the weather. He stiffened. "And what do they say?" "That you are strong, feared, dangerous even." Her tone carried no judgment, only curiosity. Omondi's lips curved slightly. "And what do you think?" "I think people fear what they don't understand," she said, her eyes holding his steadily. "And I don't fear you." It was the first time any girl had said those words to him. When the story spread that Akinyi had spoken to Omondi without trembling, the village buzzed. Some said she was foolish, others said she was bewitched. Girls whispered that she would regret it, that she didn't know what she was getting into. But Akinyi remained unshaken. Omondi, for the first time in years, found himself thinking about someone constantly. He lingered at the market more often. He offered to carry her firewood to fetch her water from the well. At first she refused, insisting she could manage, but slowly she allowed him into her space. Yet beneath their growing closeness lay a tension, sharp and unspoken. One evening, as the sun melted into orange over the hills, Omondi walked Akinyi home. The path was quiet, birds darting into trees. Suddenly he stopped, turning to face her. "Why don't you fear me like the others?" he asked. His voice was low, but it carried an edge. Akinyi studied him, her eyes calm. "Because fear is a choice, and I don't give that power to anyone." Her words unsettled him. No girl had ever spoken to him that way, not his mother, not his sisters, not the ones who had run away. For the first time he felt stripped bare, his strength meaningless. That night Omondi could not sleep. He turned in his bed, hearing her voice echoing in his mind. He realized something dangerous. Akinyi was not just unafraid of him, she was his equal. The days that followed became a dance between them. Omondi tried to assert himself, to remind her that he was the man feared by many. He would grip her wrist a little too firmly when handing her something, or stand a little too close, expecting her to step back. But Akinyi never flinched. She held her ground, her eyes steady, her chin lifted. When he tried to impress her with his strength, lifting logs, wrestling other men at the field. She only smiled. "Strength without control is nothing," she said once, and he had no reply. It was maddening but intoxicating. The more she resisted his silent intimidation, the more he burned for her. He admired her courage, her sharp tongue, her unshaken gaze, but with that admiration came frustration and desire. One evening, the sky heavy with rain, Omondi followed her to the river. She bent to fill her jerrycan, her scarf slipping, revealing the curve of her neck. His breath caught. He stepped forward, his shadow falling over her. "Akinyi," he said, his voice thick, "you don't know how dangerous I am." She straightened, turning slowly. The rain began to fall, droplets tracing her face, but her eyes never wavered. "Then show me," she whispered. The words struck him like a storm. For years, girls had fled his presence, whispering of fear, but here was one who dared him to reveal himself. He leaned in, his breath mingling with the rain, his hands trembling with the urge to pull her close. But just as he reached for her, she stepped back, smiling faintly. "Not today," she said softly, lifting her jerrycan. "You will not conquer me so easily." And she walked away, leaving him standing by the river, rain soaking his clothes, heart pounding with both defeat and desire. From that day, Omondi changed. He no longer tried to intimidate her. Instead, he sought to understand her. He asked about her childhood, about her dreams. She told him of her father's death, of the struggles her mother faced, of her desire to rise above the poverty that had defined her life. He listened, truly listened, for the first time in his life, and as he listened, something inside him softened. Akinyi, too, began to see beyond the fearsome reputation. Beneath his broad shoulders and intimidating eyes, she found a man who was lonely, who longed for acceptance but had only ever been met with fear. She saw the cracks in his armor, the boy who had grown into a man misunderstood by everyone. Their bond deepened. They laughed together at the market, walked side by side in the fields, shared stolen moments beneath the stars. Yet always, beneath the tenderness, burned a fire neither could ignore. One night, under a full moon, Omondi invited Akinyi to his compound. The village buzzed with gossip, but she went without hesitation. They sat outside his hut, silence heavy between them. Finally, Omondi spoke. "I have spent my life feared. I thought that was power, but you make me feel weak and strong at the same time." Akinyi turned to him, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "And you make me feel alive. But if you want me, Omondi, you must learn that love is not about fear. It is about surrender." The words hung between them like a challenge. He reached for her hand, not with force but with trembling gentleness. She did not pull away. For the first time, Omondi did not seek to conquer. He sought to be accepted. And Akinyi, for the first time, allowed him to see her not as prey or conquest, but as partner, equal match. From that night, Omondi's life changed. The village, once filled with whispers of fear, began to tell a new story. They saw him walking with Akinyi, not dominating but matching stride for stride. They saw his temper soften, his eyes kinder, his laughter easier. The girls who once feared him now looked with curiosity, realizing that perhaps the monster they had imagined was only a man waiting for the right woman to tame him. Akinyi had done what no one else could. She had met his storm with calm, his strength with resilience, his fearsome reputation with fearless love. And Omondi in turn discovered that true manhood was not in being feared, but in being loved, challenged, and accepted for who he truly was. The story of Omondi and Akinyi spread across the hills of Kenyan. Mothers who once warned their daughters of him now told a different tale, that even the fiercest man can be softened, not by fear, but by love. And every evening, as the sun set over the red earth, Omondi would sit outside his hut with Akinyi by his side,